All right, well, the engine is sitting in the car, jammed up as nicely as I can get it, sitting on wood and a 1/4-inch plate there as a spacer, piece of 2x4 jammed up against the side here, all in the hopes of the engine stays straight while I'm doing the work. The engine is shifted 1/2 inch to the passenger side, just for a little extra exhaust and steering clearance, as per GM specs on a big block Nova or Camaro. So it's time to build mounts. So what do I got? Well, I've got scraps, as usual. One other thing I forgot to mention when I was making these mounts, so I'll add this to the beginning of the video. But obviously, before you start building mounts, you want your engine where it's going to be. Not only side to side in the engine compartment, and not only level with the car level, which is important. If your if the floor isn't level, get your car level. The other thing is the front to back driveline angle. I have the transmission shimmed up right now, pretty much as high as I can get it, and I'm right at 3 degrees, which is perfect. Doesn't have to be right at 3, but that's generally the accepted point to be at. Driveline angle 3 degrees down. And again, I'm doing this with the car level because I expect it to be level when I'm done. And I have no rear wheels on the car to do this, but I have a level mounted on the side of the car. And the car is pretty level. The reason the rear wheels are off is because I have the front springs compressed right now to where I think they will be for ride height based on past experience. And if the rear wheels were on the car right now, it would actually be rear end up too high. It wouldn't be level. So this was the easiest way for me to level it. All right, so just reminder before you start building any mounts, make sure your engine is exactly where you want it, side to side, and driveline angle with the car level side to side, and at the rake you want front to back when it's finished. So the idea is to bolt mounts into the car that sit on the factory Jaguar pads. See down there, that's where the mounts went from the factory Jag engine, and I'm just going to make basically a intermediate piece to jump up to the engine mount. So we went to the local steel supply, grabbed a couple cutoffs. They didn't have any round bar that would work with my motor mount bolt, but they had this square, which is perfect. Fits nice. So that's what I'm going to use for the mounts to go into. And then I've got some 1.5 inch by 1, I think it is, tube steel. That'll be for the supports to tie it all together. So first thing I do is make bases. So I had these scraps of plate sitting around. That's an original Jaguar pad that used to bolt there. And I just, set that on there. Mark some holes. Rocket science. So let me get some holes drilled. I'll take this plate here and make one for the passenger side. And that'll be the first step. All right, moving along. Made a base, which is bolted to the Jag cross member there. And I cut a piece of square stock, which is bolted there inside the engine mount. And then all I did was cut a piece of the rectangle stock, and that will basically, this will focus, we'll weld in like that for the first piece, and then once it's tacked in place, I'll take it back out and weld a brace underneath to triangulate it, and then finish weld it. Pretty simple. All right, driver's side is done. Still hot. Probably overdone, but that's all it is. Flat plate, angle, triangulated on the bottom, and that's it. Plenty strong. I'll let it cool off so it doesn't burn my freaking fingers, and I'll stick it back in. There you go, driver's side mount done. Now I just got to do the same thing for the passenger side. All right, passenger side is in. Engine mounts are done. Now, I get to knock my pieces out from under the oil pan and see if the engine moves. Shims are out. Perfect. All right, now time to get under the car and make a transmission crossmember. All right, we are under the car. Engine mount's done. Now it's time for a transmission crossmember. So right now the transmission is where I want it. It's as high as it can go with the setup that we have here. And just because of my luck, I've got this crossmember here on the floor that is, I'll say, in the way. My yoke needs to slide forward another inch and it's going to crash into that. So I'm going to have to cut some of this out and weld a plate in it and basically just maybe take half of the thickness out of that. It'll be fine. It'll work, no issues, but just another thing to do. And then I'm going to put a mount on the transmission and build a crossmember. Just a public service announcement and just a public service announcement. If you want to build a hot rod and you want to build it pretty fast without a whole lot of stupid things to deal with, don't buy a Hudson. Buy anything else, don't buy a Hudson. Okay, next issue to deal with. I trimmed out that crossmember horribly. Could hardly get the plasma up in there, and between the crazy angle and the burning tar flying everywhere and landing on me and setting myself on fire, it really wasn't a good thing to video. So trust me, it's done. Next issue is, I figured before I make my transmission cross member, just because things happen, I figure I better make sure I can get a one-piece drive shaft in here, because if you remember, this car had a two-piece with a carrier bearing and a pretty small diameter one at that. So yeah, believe it or not, I actually found a drive shaft that I can shorten. It's pretty darn long. It's like 61 or 62, which is fantastic. I didn't think I had anything that long laying around, but I got it. So there's one good thing. The bad thing is running a one-piece drive shaft is not going to happen through this cross member. It just isn't going to work. Right now, I have, obviously, the car on the hoist. You can't lower the drive shaft to get to the rear axle, even though it'll be a different rear axle, because it's hitting the bottom of this big cross member that they got going through here. So the bottom of that has to get cut out. Okay, no big deal. Next issue is upward. Bashing into the top of that cross member with only about, I think it was maybe 5.5 high. And I've got 9 inches till it hits the bump stop. So that's not good. That means if this thing actually does compress that much going over bumps, or could, you're going to bash the drive shaft into that cross member up there and bend it badly. It's not a good thing. So this bracket system here that was for the carrier bearing, that's coming out. The bottom of this is getting cut out, and the top is going to get trimmed, and I'm going to have to see what that gets me and basically adjust by that. I'm going to have to possibly adjust the bump stops on this car to limit the travel on the rear axle. I'm going to have to find out. Generally, 6 inches of travel is good. 3 up, 3 down, not a problem. I think I can get that no problem with this cross member trimmed. I just hate cutting the car up like this, but it's going to have to be. And then, I don't know, maybe I can make a drive shaft loop, weld in a lower hoop here, and it just depends on how low it would be on the car. I just need it low enough that you could put the car on a hoist. Obviously, because of the leaf springs going down. Now, this is also because right now I'm keeping the original leaf springs, which these old style Leafs, they do move a lot. They sag a lot and they go up a lot. If I were to switch this to a 4-link or a truck arm, I could probably limit this travel much more. But I don't want to do that. I want to keep the original Leafs because, as I've said before, this is supposed to be a time crunch build. I need to get this car out. And it's not a race car. So these Leafs will work just fine. They worked good in 51. They'll work just fine now. I am going to tear this rear axle out, though, and change that. But so now this is the next thing I have. Now, the reason I'm talking about all this is because I needed to check this before I build my transmission cross member. Because if I set the trans too high, it's going to just make things even worse. So I dropped that, a shim under that. I dropped the transmission about 1/4 inch. And that's where it's going to have to be. I really don't want to drop it anymore. If it starts getting crazy when the car is driven and I start bottoming out, I'm going to have to raise the transmission tunnel in the car. I'll have to cut it out from the inside and raise it. Not a big deal, but I do not have time to do that now. So just to get this car going, going to have to be modifications to that cross member. But yeah. But I'm done. I was hoping to get that cross member done in today. But now that I just see how much more work and stuff I'm dealing with, I'm just going to come back fresh on the next video, which I don't even know what day that'll be. I'll figure it out. But it's not getting done today. So today we got the engine mounts finished, and that's good. That all looks wonderful. But that's going to be it. All right, we will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.